Do you feel powerless, unseen, unheard, unvalued? Are you living an inauthentic life driven by the expectations and demands of others? A life dictated by your past, your wounds, your scars? Well, it's time to break free. Join Ellie Shefi and her special guests as they guide you on a journey to leave the chains of your past behind and step into a life of your own design. Welcome to You Are Not Your Scars. Here is your host, Ellie.
Hello and welcome. Today's guest was once a silent, shy introvert whose dyslexia made her feel worthless and hide in the shadows. Through a series of tragedies culminating in her losing everything, she found her voice and discovered the power of her story. Now, with almost 3 decades of experience as an actress, television host, storytelling coach, and entrepreneur, she has helped hundreds of experts, coaches, and speakers find their voice, tell their story, and share their inspiring and impactful messages with the world. Having rebuilt her life and business solely through the power and influence of her stories, she has made it her mission to help others do the same. Welcome, Miss Natalia Nutting. You have had quite a journey. What was your first memory of living life in the shadows and silence on the sidelines? Tell us about that.
Ellie, thank you for having me here. For me, this means success. Being here with you, knowing your journey. I've got many memories, and sometimes we find it hard to choose one of these memories. We've got so many stories to tell. But I always remember this story when I was 8 years old, just a little girl, and I was in a 4th grade classroom on the 2nd row, exactly next to the wall. And I raised my hand, my shaky hand, to ask a question. Because I didn't understand, right? The teacher was there at the front saying, right, copy everything because I'm going to erase the board. And I was like, can I ask a question? And she looked at me. She said, I've already explained it. How come you don't get it?
Wow.
Many people talk about childhood trauma, but I experienced classroom trauma. And I tell you, I never thought I would become a teacher because I thought this is the disgrace. And that sentence, how come you don't get it? I still have it drilled in my mind until today. It might not feel like a tragic experience when you hear it, but at the time, you're just a little person and it really feels dreadful. All eyes are on you. You're there, little like, oh, so I put my hand down like, oh, yeah, how come I don't get it? I don't get it. Why did I dare think that I could ask a question? And it was a language lesson. Mm-hmm. But the only one doing all the speaking was the teacher. We were all quiet. This is something to pay attention to because we do this as coaches. Many coaches also do all the speaking. So because we repeat these patterns. But somehow, and I didn't know I had dyslexia at the time. So I was just experiencing things and I didn't know because there was no label at the time. 38 years ago, no one spoke about that. So I didn't know that I had a learning disability. But somehow I had like a fire coming from my core and I looked at her in the eyes and I didn't say it with words. I said it inside of me. This happens to many introverts. We have this inner world. We speak and I said it very strongly. One day I'll show you there's another way to teach.
So when you say that comment to her of, I've already explained it, why don't you get it, was a turning point for you? It sounds like it was really instrumental.
Absolutely. How come you don't get it? She said to me, of course I don't get it, because I then realized there was no story in the explanation. It was just rules and things to copy and repeat. 30 years later, because I know the inner voice that I had, one day I'll show you there's another way to teach. This moment was the turning point. I knew somehow that I would develop a method, but I didn't know how. And it's something that stays at the back of your mind. And you never know how, because I didn't want to become a teacher. But 30 years later, I find myself on the same desk, second row next to a wall in a fourth grade classroom. But the ones at the front of the classroom doing all the speaking were my students. And don't get me wrong, they were not messing about. They were speaking, empowered. They were sharing their story. 8-year-olds. I had developed the method. I was teaching through story. I discovered it. I don't know how. Many things happen in your life for a reason. From your voids, you find your superpower.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And so thousands of students went through my hands, and through the method of me teaching through story, they found their voices, they told their stories, they felt empowered, they embodied these stories, and they spoke, because this is what we need. We need to speak, to communicate, to understand ourselves and understand others. So when you don't have a voice, you feel useless. After that, developing this method, I started teaching teachers, training teachers to create a greater impact in more classrooms. And then 2 years ago, when we met, Ellie, my mission expanded to teach what I call the new teachers of the world. Yes. People like you, right? Experts, coaches, course creators that truly are breaking the chains in people's minds and letting them break through these traumas that we carry from the past. It's you, it's people like you that help others dream big and achieve their goals. So I made it my mission to empower these people with the tools of teaching through story, of sharing your stories, so that you can create results with people, so that when they listen to your story, they feel empowered. They feel that they can see and perceive and taste and feel the results through your story when you're sharing it, and they take action. Because it's through the power of story that we learn. We do not connect with a CV or with rules. We forget that. But when we listen to a story, our imagination is awakened, the senses are awakened, and we see, we feel, we are there, and therefore we can achieve the things. We take action.
Oh my goodness. So what a gift that fourth grade teacher, that comment, what a gift that was, that it changed the entire trajectory of your life. And now all of the thousands of students that have gone through your classrooms, and now all of the people that you work with, the leaders, the speakers, the coaches, to get find their voice and stand in their power and get their message out. What a gift that was. Now,
I love it that you're putting it in that way, Ellie. Sorry, I just, every time I hear someone say that, what a gift that teacher gave you, it's like, wow, yeah. It's like suddenly I remember, like, yeah, that, and it's exactly what you're doing, what you're helping people do, and remember that in your most difficult times, those people that make you suffer, it's thank them from the bottom of your heart. I still have to go back to my little village there and see that teacher and give her a big hug, because she's still a fourth grade teacher.
Wow.
It's incredible. After 30 years, I will do that. Thanks to your comment.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure somebody captures that moment. What a full circle moment that will be. In addition to you having dyslexia and having the experiences of feeling like you couldn't be successful or like you were stupid and worthless because you didn't understand, to your point earlier, there were no labels. There was no identification for dyslexia back then. So I can only imagine what that felt like as a child. But even persevering through all of that, your life has not been easy. What has been the most difficult obstacle that you have overcome, and how did you navigate it?
Some stories are always difficult to tell. And if I am to share this story now, which you've heard parts of it, and it's like these stories that we dread to share because it feels like we are back there and we are experiencing the trauma again. So we are reluctant to go back there. And I see this in many of my clients, like, I don't want to go back there. But it's very therapeutic when you can share those experiences, as you said, in the format of a story because you're sharing from the lesson part. I felt really ashamed of this for many years. If you met me a couple of years ago, probably 3-4 years ago when I was in the middle of it, I think that you would have met a completely different person, not how I am, not as bright and smiley as I am, completely different body shape. The truth is that 2 years ago, I had to walk away from an abusive relationship. I find it even hard to say that because for me, marriage was sacred, and it still is sacred. So it was the toughest decision to make in my life. For 7.5 years, I experienced all sorts of abuse. I wasn't aware of it at the time. There was this day, and I came back from work in the school, and as I did every day, I went to the back door of the house, not the front door, the back door, and I rang the bell so that my ex-husband would open it because it was locked from inside. So every day I had to ring the bell. And then he would go back to the living room where he was with his clients because he worked from home with his clients. And so I tiptoed, not making a sound so that I wouldn't interrupt, his sessions. They should not know that this was a home and that there were people living there, right? So quiet, shh. Go to the bedroom and close the door. Like every single day of 7.5 years, where I told my husband, please get a consulting room elsewhere, but no, hoarding, saving money for nothing, right? Like that, wait, I would love to have a living room. I would love to have the kitchen and, it's just play my music, speak. I couldn't speak, not about my opinions, not about my beliefs. And so that day, Ellie, I was tiptoeing, I closed the door, into the bedroom where everything happened, where I did all my course of studies there, sitting on the bed with a computer. I had no desk, I had nothing in that home. I was just enclosed in that bedroom. But that day was different. I sat down and I could just hear echoing the voices of his clients, traumas all the time. I had no rest in my life. My hands started shaking, and my chest, I felt that my heart was being suffocated. I had never experienced that. It was a panic attack. I didn't know what it was because I had never had a panic attack before in my life. Oh my goodness. And at that moment, Ellie, I knew that something was wrong. That was a turning point. I wanted to scream. I wanted to open the door of that living room and say, out of my house. This is my house. I wanted to own my space, but I had no voice. I'd been used to not having a voice in my house. And the only thing that was in my mind at that moment, Ellie, was one story. Because my mind was blank. I had one story that my sister-in-law had told me about ancient heroes that gave up everything for their beliefs, for what they stand for. And I said, that's it, enough. And I left. I didn't know what was going to happen, Ellie. I left as a punishment. He kept my whole life savings. He kept the home. He kept the car. He kept everything. I had nothing. Absolutely nothing. But I had myself. And I knew that I was being congruent with my beliefs for the first time. Because for me, the most important thing was to have a stance, make a stance and share your beliefs. I did that on the TV network where I work. I did that outside, but I couldn't do it in my own home with my own personal life. So at that moment, I felt, at last, I have congruence. And I left and I lost everything. But at that moment, Ellie, when I lost everything, I felt, now I've got nothing to lose.
Yes. Yes. That freedom, that power. I mean, my story. So, I walked a similar path, and I was also in a domestic violence marriage and escaped and lived in hiding under a fake name. So I really resonate with you. And I know so many others do as well. That feeling of suffocation, that feeling of being invisible, that feeling of being unheard, that feeling of being powerless. And then that moment where you've taken your power back. That moment when you've claimed your voice. That moment when you have set yourself free. And although you walked away from everything and had nothing, you were free. So what lessons did you learn from that experience?
Oh, well, I think that this aspect of nothing to lose is one of the biggest lessons. So, oh my gosh, if right now you're at that place where you feel you've lost everything, like, treasure it, because it is then when you've got nothing, you reach rock bottom, that you have the strength to know that there's nothing to lose and you will do just whatever it takes. Whenever I feel that I moved on and I gained something and I get a little bit comfortable, things get a little bit sticky. And so I remember my story and I remember that moment, nothing to lose. And that makes me move forward. And there was right after me leaving my home and getting the divorce and actually really, paying my lawyers and not getting anything back, really feeling a lot of disappointment, I allowed myself to again feel there's nothing to lose and let go of all of that, because I know that I'm restarting my life every single day, however I want to design it. And when I came to, I fled from my country. I was living in Argentina, actually, and I went to the UK, and I was camping at my brother's living room. So I had no home for quite a long time. And my brother said to me, "Hey, Nat, you can do this course online. And, we've all heard about this. You build this course online and then you make money as you sleep." And like that felt like a utopia for me, right? Because the fact that I grew up in Argentina, it's a very important point. We have a different mindset. So that seemed like, the American dream, that's cheesy, right? This mindset of really being quite stuck, that you cannot achieve your dreams. They mean nothing. That's just something, stuff of stories. But somehow I watched that video and I heard the story. You all know these people, Dean Graziosi, Tony Robbins. I didn't know them. I felt like I was the only person in the world that didn't know them. But I resonated with the stories and I was like, I want this. I want my freedom, create my business. Let's do it. So I clicked to buy that program and the price appeared. And it was $2,000. And guess how much I managed to salvage from all of my savings? Guess how much?
Exactly $2,000.
Yes, Ellie. It was $2,000, the only thing I had in my bank. If I paid for that, then I would have nothing, absolutely nothing. And you know how that feels. Some of you can relate to this. It's like, no, I'm not going to do it. But what am I going to do with those $2,000? They would go down the drain. And I said, if I get this, I'm going to put my whole heart as if my life depends on it. And I clicked and I bought it. Holy mackerel.
How did it feel when you clicked that, knowing that was literally every single penny that you had to your name? What was going through your mind? What was going through your body? How did that feel? That must have been terrifying.
Yeah, terrifying and exciting. At that moment, it was a reality. At that moment, it was my business is a reality, a success, yes or yes. It was already done, because that was, and for me, from my mindset coming from Argentina, you can call it a third world country, $2,000, $2,000. It's a lot of money. You never, very few people invest that in education, because there we have a system with free education. So we are used to having things, fed to us. So that meant a lot. But for me, it was like, okay, I click here and I followed each thing to the letter. I trusted, I had faith. I think that's something very important. When whatever you do, have absolute faith and surrender yourself to the process. And then you will tap into what you know, into your own intelligence, and in the doing, things will happen. And I graduated in 3 weeks, Some people graduated in years. People don't ever get to finish those courses, but I did it all to the letter. And I tell you what, in 3 weeks, I graduated. I created my own company, Unstoppable Storytellers, and I was out there teaching, sharing my stories in all the platforms I could, really sometimes feeling ridiculous, feeling very uncomfortable on camera, but who cares? I kept on doing it. It's just testing. It's just being ridiculous, testing, and it's just yourself judging yourself because others feel that you really are a hero. You're putting yourself out there.
Wow, that is amazing. So you just took that messy, uncomfortable action, and then you really committed because you had nothing else to lose. That was every penny you had, and so you better make something of it. So I love how that is another full circle moment of you had nothing to lose and everything to gain. And so you just dove in. What advice would you give to someone who feels like they have nothing to say, or like their voice doesn't matter, or they're uncomfortable on camera, all the things that go through their head for why they're not out there using their voice and sharing their message?
For me, it's not about you. It's about them. So it's not about you. It's about who is listening. So I'm going to share with you my first day on a studio, right? Recording the news, because I was a news anchor for many years. So the first day, 2009, I was there in the studio, the huge camera there in front of my face, like, oh, and I was grabbing the desk and my fingers were there frozen, and 3, 2, 1, live. That's how I was. Frozen, absolutely. So much pressure. But thank God it was not live. It was pre-recorded. So we did 1 take, 2 takes. By the 10th take, it was not news anymore, right? But we had to put it out there in the media. We had to put it in social media. That's where we were, on Facebook. So we put it out there, and I dreaded that moment, Ellie, because I thought that I felt that I looked ridiculous. My hair, the makeup, like my voice, I hated every single thing. And so I dreaded to read the first comment that arrived. And I read it, and I was like, God bless you. If it weren't for you, we would still be in the dark. It was by a lady called Maria. Oh, how stupid I was. All the stupid thoughts that I had in my mind. She reminded me of the reason why I was there doing the news. We were doing uncensored news. For her, we were heroes. I had lost touch with that no one was speaking about what we were speaking. And so she, if it weren't for us, she would be in the dark. It was not about how my voice sounded, how I looked, and forget about all that. It's about the message that they need to hear. And so the next day, I went into the studio, I looked into the camera, and I only thought of Maria. And I read the news, and we recorded the news in 1 take. Yes! And from that day on, this particular program went viral. Absolutely viral on Facebook. We were, for a whole year, we were viral, and people were receiving these uncensored news. So I knew that it was not about me. It was about them. I had to let go of all those fears. Who cares about that? It's really about the message. It's not the messenger. It's the message. So when you remember that it's about them and how meaningful what you have to say is for others, you can flow. You will always stay on topic, and you will flow, because I tell you right now, me too, I'm nervous and I'm shaking. But something else is speaking through me, because I know that I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for you, because I want you to have a voice and to speak with power and to speak your true self, because I know that we are much more than what we think we are. And we need to communicate, express ourselves, because that's how we learn about ourselves, we learn about others, we grow in communication.
You have developed several programs and your signature methodology that helps people to really find their voice and tell their story and get their message out into the world. I know you've given us a little hint and little glimpses into your process, and into those programs that you've developed. But tell us more about those.
Well, something I'm very proud of is the Hero Story Bank. Hero Story Bank. It's got the word hero, it's got the word story, and bank, right? Bank. Okay, I'll explain what that means. So when I couldn't speak, right, when I shared my story before, I couldn't speak, I didn't have a voice, but I longed to speak, and I discovered drama. That was incredible. Every time I would go on stage, and this is as a teenager, actually as a girl, 10 years, I started when I was 10 years, and I would go on stage, and, right when you're about to go on stage, you're like, yes, you're shaking, and suddenly you feel you forgot all the script and all the words that were there. Oh my goodness, I forgot everything. And then whoosh, the curtain goes up, and boom, you push, and suddenly you're not yourself anymore. You are the story. And it flows. But in everyday life, we don't have a script, right? So in everyday life, I didn't feel that I flowed. I couldn't speak. I couldn't express myself. I could not create a sentence without blushing, without feeling that I was telling something that had any meaning. I would stop half sentence because I didn't know myself. I know that's a big thing, but not many people get to know themselves. And I longed for that. And I spent so many years in solitude and silence, daydreaming in my garden. Oh my goodness, if I remember, lying down there on the grass, looking at the sky, daydreaming of how I could have like a sort of bank of things to say, stories that could come out of my pocket and I could tell at the right moment and have the right thing to say. I longed for that for decades. And when I became a teacher, I was sharing stories. I was sharing stories of heroes, ancient heroes, and I love them and I believed in them. I do believe in fairy tales, right? I'm very, very naive. But still, there were stories of others. Still, there was something else that needed to empower myself. And it was only when I started to tap into my own personal stories, my own personal experiences in life, understanding all those tragic moments or, things that you don't like, that you went through, that you feel that happened to you. Oh my goodness. But finding a lesson in each one of them and finding what was it that I clinged into? What was the value that helped me go through this, achieve something? When you do that process, you start getting to know yourself. And when you put it in the format of a story, it's like you feel you have something meaningful to say. You have an experience that has a lesson, that has a message for others. Suddenly you feel empowered. You feel proud about yourself. You feel clear about who you are. That is how I created the Hero Story Bank, because ultimately, I believe that all of us, we are heroes. Just like those hero fairy tales, I feel that they were real at some point. They were real people, and they lived an honorable life. They went through some stuff, and they reflected upon it. Therefore, now we tell their tales. How about you? All the things you've been through. Why not you? Being the stuff of tales for the future. But for that, you need to go through a process, which can be grueling, because you need to go inside, reflect upon yourself. And it's sort of, excuse me if this sounds cheesy, but it's becoming a better person. Yeah. And you get to know yourself. And then you create stories about yourself. They're not just for you. They are for you, but they are for others, so that others can understand a point, grasp something, and you can use them for teaching, for coaching, for connecting with people. And look at this. You see these cards? These cards, they're much more valuable than any credit card that you might have in your purse. These are story cards. They are worth billions. These are story cards of my life. I've got dozens of them. These are part of the Hero Story Bank. Because your stories can save your bank. I had nothing, I lost everything. And it was my stories that I started sharing out there that allowed me to get everything back. And when I had zero in the bank, I had my Hero Story Banks that managed to create quite a juicy bank in the end. But it doesn't matter. If I get to lose everything again, I got my story cards. And this is what I'm doing today.
So would you say that the creation of your hero story bank and the process of really looking inward and taking inventory of your life experiences, of your values, of your beliefs, and then putting them on these incredible cards to create your story bank, would you say that that has been the most valuable tool or resource that you've developed and now that you help others develop?
Yes, I can say that, Ellie, because first of all, it has helped me because I still feel that trauma of feeling that, oh, I've got nothing meaningful to say. It's really drilled in me and I'm always shaky every time I'm going to speak. But I've got these cards and I look at them and they give me confidence. It's like very simple words that show me the path in just bullet points of my stories and the lessons. So when I help my clients through this process, it's a threefold process. So first, you gain clarity of who you are, clarity on your identity, on your beliefs, on what you stand for through your stories. And we create a story bank of 30 stories in just 30 days. It sounds incredible because some people work for a whole year in just one story, their stage story. But there's more. I feel there's more. There's many mini stories and daily stories that give you clues of who you are. So we extract them through a process that I guide you through, where I get you into inspiration mode and suddenly they all start coming. Stories that you forgot you experienced and they all start coming. And we get into this process of being very comfortable, of sharing them on camera. And so you get comfortable with yourself. Speaking them out because maybe some stories you never shared before. So you create these story bank. First, it gives you clarity on who you are. Then when you see this layout of all of your stories, it gives you confidence to share your message because you feel, gosh, I got something meaningful to share.
Absolutely.
And all these stories, we put them, this is part of my method. I don't want to reveal all the secrets, but we put them into 3 separate containers, 3 pillars that are your 3 main pillars in your life and in your business. Therefore, now, number 3, you got the conviction to speak with power, because with this, you create a very congruent, and congruence is such an important word, congruence and clear course curriculum or layout for your book. So my clients, after going through this process in 3 months, they feel that confidence, right, to come out of the shadows and launch their online programs, launch their books, launch their podcasts, because now they have something to say that is not a script that they learned in a marketing course, is their own stories.
You mentioned a few times now the importance of being congruent. So how are you able to stay congruent and in alignment with your values, your mission, your purpose?
That is the key. Live up to your purpose, not to anyone's expectations. And you know this, Ellie. You are a living testament of this. Because if you live up to other people's expectations, you are not anything. You are nothing. You're wishy-washy. You're not what they expect. You are not yourself. And therefore, you exhaust yourself to be liked, to have people say how great you are, and then you feel betrayed when you don't get that. So do not expect anything from others. Do not live to what you think are their expectations, because it might be just something that you have in your mind, a notion, and it might not be their expectations. So you might as well just be you. So at least you are something. Make a stance. That congruence gives confidence to others because they feel, oh, even though I might not agree with this person, she's standing there, she's got a point and she's not going to bend, because we don't like people that bend and are wishy-washy, because that doesn't give us confidence. We're not going to, surrender ourselves, because we're not going to find no one that's going to hold us, right? So just be yourself. However you are, however weird you are, because I consider myself a misfit, a weirdo, and I'm so happy and proud about that. Just be yourself And today I said to Ellie, I'm so proud of being interviewed today. I put makeup on. But in everyday situations, and when I'm with my clients or when I'm on camera doing my videos, I don't even put makeup on. I don't care. I just want to show myself as I am. And whoever doesn't like it, good for them. And whoever likes it, that's the people I resonate with, and it's the people I want to attract. So if you are yourself, you get a chance to attract the right people that you will want to have a meaningful relationship with, be it any type of relationship, friendship or business relationship. That is key. Just be yourself.
So your secret sauce for staying in alignment with your mission, your values, your purpose, your beliefs is just to show up as you, as the authentic, aligned you, in all of your quirks, all of your glory, all of your light. Just embrace it and show up as you. What a powerful secret sauce. Piggybacking on that, self-care is critical, right? You mentioned earlier that you have to fuel yourself. How do you make sure that when you are pouring into others, when you are serving others so powerfully, you also pour into yourself, you also serve yourself? So what habits or routines do you use for your self-care?
That is crucial, Ellie, because especially because we work with the stories of other people. And so, wow, sometimes it can be exhausting. So I know deep down inside that I am an introvert, right? Even though now I'm speaking, I'm sharing stories, I'm a speaker, blah, blah, blah. I am an introvert. And I acknowledge that, and I'm quite a hermit. So I make sure that I have a lot of me time. I design my week to have a lot of me time in solitude. I live on my own in an Airbnb, and I need to have at least 3 hours outside in nature in absolute solitude. So I either grab my bike and go for a bike ride, or I go for a walk. I live in a place where I have a countryside next to me and big walks. I can't live in the city. And so I make sure that I do my meditation every single day. No matter what you practice, I practice Falun Dafa, and I've been practicing for 18 years. So I do my meditation and my exercises every single day, especially when I don't fancy. Sometimes it's like, oh, I can't be bothered. But somehow you know that when you do it, something happens. Your mind is more expanded, right? You feel more kindness. Also, I must be honest, this morning, I didn't want to get out of bed. I was like, oh, it's so cozy. And I had tons of things to do. I knew that if I stayed in bed, there's many, many things, we've got many patterns that we developed of behavior. And sometimes we train ourselves to be low and, not be happy or whatever. And I said, to heck with it. So I just, rah, pulled the duvet out, and I'm going for a cold plunge. And I went for a cold plunge. And it was rainy. It's winter now in the UK, and it's always drizzly and miserable. But I made that decision. And even though when I came out of bed, I regretted that decision, I didn't want to do it, I did it in any case. And I went out, and you get the reward, because I went out and the sun came out and there was a huge rainbow on the other side. I went right there for my cold plunge. It was freezing. But at that moment, I felt so connected to the elements, to nature, to myself. So the biggest thing, if I can say it in a couple of words, do not think, just do it. Create a healthy routine and just do it. The thoughts that come, like, oh no, I do it later, do not pay attention to those thoughts. Many of those thoughts are not even yours, right? There's like messages all there. There's a huge universe happening in the air that you might not see it, might interfere with your thoughts. So do not pay attention to those. Just stick to the routine and do it. It is in the doing, it is in the action that you can develop your true identity and your true wisdom.
Amazing. So creating that routine for yourself that nourishes you, that fills you up, and then sticking to that. That's so, so important. The power of a routine, the power of your self-care. knowing yourself, carving out that space to really replenish and feed your soul so that you can go out and serve others. So you've also touched on a few times the inner critic or the external, the limiting beliefs that sometimes can arise. And you've shared with us so many really powerful golden nuggets on how to silence the inner critic or how to smash your limiting beliefs, or how to power through and silence the voices in your head and tune out the external. But if you had to pick just one additional tool or resource, one helpful hint that can help our audience come home to themselves with that clarity and that commitment, what would that be?
I love it that you're like drilling and, trying to get there to the nitty gritty, because this is really a work in progress, because that inner critic comes all the time. New level, new devil. That's what they say. I think faith is a big thing. However, you might feel it yourself, but even if you're not religious or whatever, faith is congruence for me. Faith is really believing in one thing, at least it can be you, in one thing, that believing that you can. And sticking to it, no matter what. So let's put it with the words that I said before. No matter what, do not let those thoughts define who you are. Just believe in who you truly are. Because when you extract your stories, and this is why I work with the story bank, there you see who you truly are. What were your values that allowed you to succeed in all of the struggles you went through? So cling to those and not the inner critic, which are the learned things. Everything is within you. So just have faith in that.
I notice that you are very playful, and a huge part of your methodology is to have fun. Where did that come from?
I had the blessing of working with children, because for many years I worked for the government and I've been around like corrupted people, and I got fed up. And one day I resigned my job and started to work with children. And that was a blessing for me. So for 7 years, I experienced working with children, and I learned from them much more than they learned from me. Whenever you prompt them to do something, they just go for it and do it. They're just so brave. They don't care about how other people will think, what the other people will think, their expectations. They just go for it and do it. Everything is a game. And through that playfulness, they learn tons. What we might learn in 30 years, they learn it in less than a week. And I thought, this is amazing. And I remember going into the classrooms where I worked every day, and I was just a child. I was so playful. And the children would come dancing, they felt themselves with me because I was being playful, childish, and they allow themselves also to be who they are, playful and childish. Because I noticed that even children are expected to behave in a way that they are not, right? Like behaving like adults. And I think that we all carry our inner child. And I see all of us adults actually as little children with a big body, and just, get over it, just play. If everything is a game. And when I tap into that playfulness mode, I don't care. I just share my stories, and even the silliest stories, funny stories, and I share them on my social media, and I don't care what the reaction will be. It's just playful. And that playfulness has helped me also launch many times on my business, the different iterations of my program, Captivate, when I felt just before launching, you feel like this dreadful feeling because you're going to pitch something, right? And it's like, woo, you feel, oh my goodness, no, people are not going to like it. I'm going to be silly, the imposter syndrome. But every time I said, let's just play with it. It's just a game, let's have fun. And it worked. So that would be the biggest. I think that amongst all, I could say that that's the biggest thing. Remember that you're just a child and this is just a game. It's all a game. Just play with it. Have fun.
So I love that. I love the idea to not take it too seriously, to just have fun with it, make it a game, play more, stress less. I love that. Thank you. What an incredible tidbit. As we wrap up here today, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story. And I want to thank you for showing up in the world as powerfully as you do, for finding that fire from that fourth grade teacher to really turning that into your mission and purpose. And for over 30 years now, helping others to find their voice, helping others to believe in themselves, to become confident, to get clear on their message, and then to go out and share that message powerfully with the world. And so as our time together today comes to a close, I ask you, what message or parting words would you like to share?
For a long time, my mission was to revive the ancient hero stories because I felt that there was so much wisdom in those stories that were not being told and not many people knew about them, like really ancient stories that could inspire people. And then I kept on asking myself, why? Why is that so important? Why these tales? Why all these oral tales? Because ultimately, I believe that maybe you don't believe in this, but this is what I believe. That maybe we fulfilled those roles in the past as those heroes. And I believe that we are all heroes. We have the potential to become heroes. So my message is that you can become, embody, and speak as the hero that you truly are to make this a life worth living and be the stuff of tales for the future.
Amazing. How can people find out more about your work or connect with you?
You can follow my Facebook page. Right now, I'm very simple. I'm only on Facebook. Soon I will open a podcast, but that's not yet. You can follow my Facebook page, Unstoppable Storytellers, or my profile, Natalia Nutting. If you do that, please do send me a message because otherwise it might get lost.
Thank you so much. You are a gift to the world. Till next time.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of You Are Not Your Scars. Be sure to implement the tools and strategies shared today as you create a limitless life. Know that you are worthy, you are resilient, you are unbreakable, and you are unstoppable. Find more episodes of this podcast at youarenotyourScarsPodcast.com. While you may have been forged by fire, you are free by design.